We need to talk. See, when I started this channel, I was fully prepared for the comment section to be full of trolls. But as it turns out, you guys have been nothing but supportive and helpful. A little too helpful. Because now I find myself with more buttons than sense. So a few people reached out in the comments on previous videos to ask what I was doing with the Stream Decks and the iPad. So here's a quick walkthrough. It's actually a bundle sold by flightpanels.io. The Stream Deck Plus is my autopilot, which replicates the full length of the EFIS control panel and the AFS control panel, as well as transponder and lighting controls. The Stream Deck XL is running the absolute unit that is the Inibuilds A350 profile, with 29 pages and more than 700 buttons. It's a bit overwhelming. If I'm honest, I prefer to use the buttons in their actual location within the flight deck. But with a bit of customization, this is definitely better than programming individual keyboard shortcuts. Lastly, my iPad is recognized by the Stream Deck app as a virtual device and is running the Aero Lens profile to control the cameras. This is not sponsored in any way, I just think it's a cool product. On the subject of the Stream Deck app, the beta version 7, enables you to create yet another virtual device that you can keep anywhere on screen and customize the buttons exactly as you would do with a regular device. So why all of this stuff? Well, partly because I really enjoy pressing buttons, but also because I can now show you how we would actually fly in engine failure after takeoff. Now I will say I've tried this before, but let's just say I'm still waiting for a developer to really nail the engine failure after takeoff. If you found one that does, do let me know, preferably before I lose the will to live. Now we can't program the simulator to fail an engine for us at a specific speed, so the way I'm going to have to make this work is to kind of cross my hands over, fly with one hand and use the mouse with the other, and select an engine fire close to V1, and then shortly after V1 I'll be retarding one of the thrust levers manually to simulate that sort of engine failure. Now today we're going to be using the Inibuilds A350, the fly-by-wire A380, and whichever the built-in A320 is that comes with Flight Simulator 2024. So how do we fly an engine failure? First of all, you've got to keep it straight. You do that by looking way down as far as you can at the end of the runway. When the call comes to rotate, initially you want to maintain your track. Here comes the first common error that we see. People seem to forget about a crosswind. During a normal takeoff, the nose should be allowed to weathercock into wind, whereas most of our engine failure training, at least to start with, is done in calm conditions. So the priority is to stop the yawing motion that happens with the engine, keep the nose pointing perfectly straight down the runway as long as you can, and then once you get airborne, if you hold that picture, the wind is going to blow you downwind. So don't forget, you may need to actually add a rudder input to make the nose turn into wind in order to keep flying in a straight line after rotating. Speed control, vitally important. Therefore, the technique is that you aim for 10 degrees. The flight directors will try to take you higher. You must ignore them for as long as you can. Usually sort of 4 or 5 seconds afterwards, once normal law blends in, then the flight directors will be reliable and can be followed. But you really have to try quite hard to ignore them and just sit at 10 degrees. Otherwise you're going to end up way too slow at a heavyweight departure. So once you're airborne, you'll get a call of positive climb from the pilot monitoring. You'll ask them to raise the landing gear. You'll be able to trim off the pressure on your feet. Once the aircraft is in trim, you should then be able to engage the autopilot, by which time you'll be around 400 feet. Generally, Airbus wants you to wait until you're above 400 feet before starting ECAM actions. But once you do, you should confirm that you have indeed identified the correct engine. This can be difficult if it's stalling. Sometimes it produces more thrust than the surging, so you really have to take a moment in a high pressure, high adrenaline scenario to make sure that you are about to shut down the correct engine. Once you have identified the engine and you agree with what the ECAM thinks has happened, then you can follow the ECAM actions. They always start with the thrust lever. Now, obviously, to simulate this scenario today, I will have already closed the thrust lever, but it is critically important that you confirm which thrust lever it is you're going to move. Pilot flying moves the thrust lever, even during the ECAM actions, and pilot monitoring confirms before you move that thrust lever. So you'll bring it to idle, then pilot monitoring will move the engine master switch again with confirmation that we are about to move the correct one. If you're on fire, the next one is to confirm the fire indications, push the fire push button. What the fire push button does is that it closes the valve to shut off the fuel to the engine, turns off the hydraulics, closes all of the air, just completely isolates that engine as much as possible. If that fire is still burning after you've removed the fuel flow, then you have the fire suppressant, which is the next button that you should push. And then you kind of hope that it works. If it doesn't, you've got one more. So there's 2 bottles per engine. And then if you can't do that, then you've got to come back and land as soon as you can. Now, I'll probably stop the demonstration there because none of the 3 aeroplanes that we tested today actually simulate the correct behavior of the aircraft. What actually happens in the aeroplane is that in the background, the system knows that an engine has failed, and you then tell the aeroplane when you want it to accelerate. The Inibuilds 350 and 320 and the fly-by-wire A380 will all get to 1,000 feet and automatically change from SRS mode to open climb or climb mode, depending on whether in nav or heading, and start accelerating. Now, the real aeroplane does not do that. It will stay in SRS mode with an engine failure until you decide that you want to accelerate. The reason for that is that your priority is always to secure the engine, and if you're doing an engine failure procedure in mountainous terrain, you want to fly your engine out SID before you start accelerating. So when it detects an engine failure, it will stay in SRS mode. Like I said, none of the 3 aeroplanes that we tried today will do that. So it would almost be negative training for me to show you that bit. And then I will manipulate the autopilot if it's available, as weirdly it's not always available in today's demonstration. Come back in just to see how it feels and how it performs for an approach and a landing. Let's get into it.
V1.
Too low, gear.
Okay, this is where it starts to get silly. It's telling me to switch off the bleed, then later on generates an ECAM for an abnormal bleed configuration before it's asking me to actually put out the fire. Clearly this is incorrect, at least according to the manual that I use. So I'm going to stop it there and move on to see how it performs on the approach.
500.
Right, two things. One, where are you going? Two, what is that noise? It's still not right. I have control.
400. 100 above. 300.
Too low. Flaps.
Minimum 200. 100.
Sink rate.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10, 5.
So the fly-by-wire A380 sounds incredible, handles great. I'm not sure how, but we seem to have generated a 40-knot crosswind shortly after rotation that wasn't programmed into the simulator. I don't think that's the aircraft. Also, you'll notice that during the approach it's flashing lever MCT. That's not because I haven't selected lever MCT, it's because every time I engage the auto thrust, for some reason the thrust came back to idle and it got a bit scary quite quickly. So slight workaround, but let's see how she handles on the approach. Reminder, this software is free.
Hundred above. Minimum 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, 5.
Too low, gear. Too low, gear. Too low, gear. Too low, gear.
So there's a classic example of what happens when you overpitch by 2, maybe 3 degrees. Just about recoverable given the weight of the aeroplane. Incidentally, I only gave myself 1 take to record these, and that will be the first time that I've flown an A320 in about 13, maybe 14 years. As you're about to see on the landing, where I try and convince this thing to intercept the planet.
300. 200. 100. 50. 40. 30. 20. Retard. 10. 5. Retard. 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 Retard.
So that's how we handle an engine failure after takeoff. 3 different aircraft, 3 different flavors of chaos, and all of them just about got the job done. Hopefully it gave you a clearer picture on how we manage these situations and how Airbus, in its infinite wisdom, has made sure that everything always works, mostly or sometimes. And before the comment section starts suggesting that I build a hydraulic rig, a 6 degrees of freedom motion platform, and hire an AI co-pilot, just please know that I'm already banned from entering most electronics stores unsupervised. Thanks for watching, and as always, feel free to drop your thoughts, comments, and aircraft suggestions in the comments. Clearly, I listen.